Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, Senate Bill 623 has to do with electronic routing services. In other words, like things like Waze, Google Maps, and Mapquest. So, what the bill does, the quick version of what the bill does, is that it requires VDOT to create an online registry of roads that Waze, Google Maps, routing services like that are not allowed to route cars onto. The roads that go on are up to each locality. They can designate up to 5% of only their secondary roads, and the road also has to be in a residential district, which is a defined term in section 462100. It's basically a road with homes on either side. It also gives the Attorney General enforcement authority to make sure that this is complied with, and it excludes ambulances, emergency services, fire trucks, things like that, and parcel delivery. So the reason is these services like Waze and Google Maps and Mapquest, they're wonderful services, but they also create lots of problems. So I can tell you that in the area, the district that I represent basically has I-95 running down the entire spine of it with the Beltway at the top and the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. Some of the most notorious choke points and traffic messes in the entire country. And because of that, these routing services often end up pushing thousands of cars into neighborhoods where they don't belong and shouldn't be. So, for example, one neighborhood is Belhaven. I have somebody here from Belhaven who's got a bunch of pictures and things they're going to show you. They've had a lot of problems. You guys hand these out. And I'll let him tell you about Belhaven. The town of Occoquan, the pages are now handing out a letter from the chief of police in the town of Occoquan. Occoquan lies right at the intersection of 123, I-95, and Old Bridge Road. The town of Occoquan is 2.2 square miles, has 1,000 people who live in it, and 7,000 cars a day go through it. Even though these 7,000 cars are going through an area that is not a primary road. I've also heard, just this weekend, people who live along US 50 have been complaining to me about new congestion showing up in their neighborhood because of the I-66 toll situation. So people that used to take I-66 because of the tolls, now Waze is starting to push all these cars into people's neighborhoods. And it creates major safety problems. If you read the letter from the town of Occoquan, the chief of police there, he says that this cut-through brings these vehicles under our narrow one-way streets through historic business and residential districts. It's simply not a matter of inconvenience, but they create real public safety issues for the town, residents, visitors, and businesses. And you see there he lists out the problems. Pedestrian vehicle interactions, stop sign violations, driving off the roadway, ignoring lane markings, blocking intersections, distracted driving, road rage, speeding through crosswalks in residential areas, traffic-affected timely emergency assistance. There's so many cars in there, they can't get ambulances to people timely anymore because cars go through. I've also heard that 18-wheelers have gotten stuck in town because they end up, Waze sends them into town, they get stuck, can't make a turn. It's an old town with little tiny streets. And it's not just happening there, it's happening in lots of places. And as you all should have received some articles I gave you during session of the problems that have occurred in other states. One town in New Jersey is basically just shuts down during rush hour. They put up barriers so that people can't get into their town. There's some people that put fake things on Waze. They'll put up fake road blockades or accidents to try and keep people out, and then until Waze bans them off their system. There's another town I read where they have people putting stickers on their cars, and you're not allowed to be on their roads unless you have a sticker on your car. So there's places all around the country that are taking matters into their own hands, and I thought that in Virginia we could have a little less of an aggressive system rather than blockading things. We could just tell these services not to route people on there. I'm not telling anybody they can't use the road. All I'm saying is that these routing services shouldn't route them into neighborhoods where they don't belong, where the roads aren't safe for that. And that's basically what the bill does. And I think there's a few people here testify in favor of it, and a couple opposed.
All right. If you want to bring those up in favor,
Sure.
5 minutes on the timer.
5 minutes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Sarah Taylor with the City of Alexandria. The City of Alexandria is in strong support of this bill. It would give the city the option to reduce cut-through traffic in certain neighborhoods. In Alexandria, we have a number of very specific neighborhoods that get cut-through traffic for people looking to go to the Beltway, the Woodrow Wilson Bridge, head south on I-95. Traffic backs up for blocks. People aren't able to get into their neighborhoods or even get out of their driveways in a lot of circumstances. So we are in support of this bill because it would give us the opportunity to reduce the cut-through traffic in our neighborhoods, protect quality of life, increase safety in the community. We're thankful to the Senator for bringing this bill and this issue to your attention and appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Sid Hatcher. I live in Belhaven, which is Fairfax County, Alexandria. My comments reflect the incidents that are occurring in our neighborhood, very much like what is occurring in a number of other neighborhoods. Same kinds of things, people running stop signs, high speed. To give you a few facts about our neighborhood, we rest right in between Richmond Highway and Route 1, which is a major thoroughfare getting to the Wilson Bridge. When Waze starts to back traffic up on Fort Hunt Road or Richmond Highway, it'll send folks through our neighborhood. It's 0.2 of a mile longer, but that route is 3 stop signs. And the irony is folks get to the bottom of Woodmont, they have to make a left turn back onto Fort Hunt Road. So they're fighting with their fellow commuters for that same space. So it is a problem. In the package that I provided, it goes through some of the data, pictures of what happens when traffic gets blocked up. I've taken time-lapse video of the situation at peak rush hour. There's 150 or more cars per hour that come through. And that, like I said, that has nowhere to go. Your package also has screenshots of a traffic mapping application, and I've kind of correlated that traffic mapping to the actual traffic. What happens is as the traffic starts to build, folks will see it on Waze and they'll say, I got to go through Belhaven. So we have a hazard of moderate traffic, high speed, and that's when I'm worried about our children and the vulnerable road users from the previous bill, 919. And then as traffic gets heavier, it comes to gridlock, and that's where we run into people not being able to get home, emergency vehicles, et cetera, not coming through. So that's all I have.
Anyone else? Anyone else in the audience like to speak in favor of the bill? All right. So, Senator Surovell, just real quick, do you think by limiting this that you stop that habit? I mean, people know the route, so why would you think that they wouldn't take it anyway?
They'll know the route, but I think it will reduce the activity over time as people who are new to the area, et cetera, start to not know the route during their commute anymore. I mean, people who grew up in the area like me knew a lot of these ways, but not a lot of people were using them until Waze and Google Maps told everybody about them. So, yeah, it's against New Virginians, right? But
all right.
It's a real problem. I mean, these pictures he showed you right here, these streets were built in 1920 when people were driving Model Ts. And the streets are only wide enough for 2 cars. So if somebody parks their car, there's only room for 1 car to go by. And then you throw 150 cars into an environment like that where people have their kids and their bicycles and stuff. It's crazy. And so they ought to be able to designate that neighborhood as off limits. And same thing like with the town of Occoquan or places like that.
Some of my roads still have grass growing up in the middle of them, so I'm not sympathetic there. So,
Mr. Chairman.
So is there anyone, Senator Morrison?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've lived in Northern Virginia all my life, and Arlington streets are a mystery wrapped in an enigma that I still haven't figured it out. So I've used Waze, and it has taken me into people's neighborhoods, and I'm saying, there's no way I'm going to get there. And all of a sudden, boom, there you are. You have arrived at this place. You had no idea that you could go that way. I'd never be able to replicate it. But at the same time, I'm going through townhouse subdivisions, places that are, highly crowded. This probably wouldn't be an issue in most places in the state, and I'd love to see sort of a local option here. But I certainly get the senator's point that this is putting real stress on small neighborhoods throughout crowded suburbs and cities like northern Fairfax County and city of Arlington and Alexandria. And I think there's something to this, and I think it's something we need to pursue. The only thing is, I would hate to see this, placed on jurisdictions in the Commonwealth that would be of no real benefit for. And I don't know if there's any way to make this as more of a local option.
Okay, so is there any? Let's hear from the opposition real quick.
And committee members, my name is Guy Rolling. I represent Google, and I've had lots of discussion with Senator Surovell about this legislation, and I'm certainly sympathetic to the issue. I'm just not sure from a practical standpoint how you can eliminate public roads from this application. I had suggested to Senator that maybe a better way of dealing with this is a program that was undertaken earlier, well, I should say last year, by Fremont, California. They had traffic issues, and what the city of Fremont did was instituted commute hour driving restrictions. And we worked with Fremont and Waze and posting these driving restrictions on Google Maps and the Waze application. And that way motorists know that if they're traveling through a certain area, there's going to be a no right turn or no entry during the commute rush hours. And I think that's probably a simpler and a better way to handle this.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Jeff Merriman with Verizon. We have a couple of applications that would be impacted by this legislation, VZ Navigator and Mapquest. And our issue is similar to what Mr. Rowling stated, but it would essentially make it illegal for us to provide information to our users that information is perfectly legal information. And if we did it incorrectly, we'd be fined for doing so. So these are perfectly legal roads. We just wouldn't be able to tell our users that they could use them.
All right, anyone else? Senator Chase.
Senator Surovell. This is thankfully not an issue in my district. This is one of the reasons that whenever I worked for several congressmen, the deal was I didn't have to come to Northern Virginia because of the traffic. I know my district probably would not be in favor of this because they like the Waze apps and it's working pretty well there, but I would agree to some type of amendment or local option if you'd like to provide one of those.
Yeah, and I'm happy to have that as a either Plan District 9 or local option would be fine with me.
So even if we do,
or Plan District 8,
if that would be amenable and had the ability, what is your response to the opposition where an individual has a legal right to know that information and you're going to withhold it from them?
Well, the bill doesn't require them to take the road off their map, so you can still see it on the app. It just prohibits their app from telling them to go that way. Their little purple line you have to follow. That's what the bill would do. That's my interpretation of it.
So playing devil's advocate, knowing what kind of an attorney you are and knowing your ability, if I had Verizon and I had Mapquest and there was an ability to go around a detour and I was involved in an accident because Mapquest wouldn't tell me which way to go, is there any liability there from them withholding that information?
No, not for. I mean, if they routed you onto a road that was a one-way road and they told you to go down the wrong way, I could see liability. But the way
it's under construction,
the way, well, there's lots of roads under construction they route you onto. But I would think that the way this works is if instead of routing you onto the road you can't go on, it would route you onto a different road, either keep you on the way you're going or route you around the neighborhood a different way around. So,
who would enforce it?
Under the way the bill is written, the Attorney General can enforce it if they're notified of a violation. I think it says that they can sue for $500.
Right. Okay. Senator Wexton.
Question for the patron.
Yep.
Scott, what happens if there's an emergency and, 95 is shut down or something like that, and cars have to be routed off of, the main thoroughfare in order to get them through a detour? Does your bill have any sort of emergency provisions?
No.
Okay.
I was trying to keep it as simple as possible, but no, it doesn't.
And Mr. Chairman,
Senator
just
Wexton.
one final question for the patron. Would this apply to, a GPS that's built in a car, that doesn't,
OnStar.
that's, OnStar or something like that? Would this bill apply to those, mapping services?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
It's any system that provides routing services utilizing live traffic information or something. I defined it in the bill. So it would apply only to OnStar or whatever, to the extent it's got live traffic information going into it. So, for example, my Honda Odyssey, my 2006 Honda Odyssey doesn't have that. It's just a static map. And
Like, meaning it will change your route depending on traffic conditions?
right,
Okay.
it's only that
During
type of
the
app.
course of the trip?
Right, only that type of app.
All right,
All right.
thank you. Thank you.
All right, we have the bill before us.
If anybody wants to make the Planning District 8 amendment or the local option, I'm happy to accept that as a friendly amendment.
All right, so there's a motion and a second that applies only to Planning District 8. Does that make it special legislation if it just because it's a, all right. All right, so, okay. All right, so there's a motion and a second that we adopt the amendment to apply only to Planning District 8. All in favor say aye. All opposed? One abstention. So now we have the bill before us as amended. If this bill were to be reported, it would have to go to finance.
Does?
Chairman, I actually read this as having a local option now, because the way that the bill is written, VDOT has to create this registry, but then the localities may designate roads to go into it. So the locality ultimately would make the decision whether to make that designation or not. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So, Scott, just for your information, my notes are that this has to be referred to finance. So
Okay. I have no fiscal impact statement in yet on it, so
we'll determine that in finance.
it sounds ominous.
The VDOT's involved in it, so we have to determine it. So there's a motion now to report and refer to finance as amended in a second. All right. All in favor of reporting and referring to finance as amended, vote aye on electronic voting board.
Six ayes, 6 nays, 1 abstention.
Bill fails to report.
Got it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.